Hi, today, short little video. We get people ask us questions saying about how do I change the text on a push button depending on if it's pressed or released, and especially if it's tied to a PLC symbol. A few ways of doing this. Some better than others, but again, you may have to use one process if it suits your application better. So I'll show you a few different types and then the one that I would typically use on a project that I was putting together. Right, what I've got here, I'm using a toggle button. So the difference between our standard buttons and toggle buttons, obviously, all the time I press a standard button. If I tie to its state symbol, this one here, if I tie to that on a standard button, it will go high all the time I'm holding it, and when I let go, it will go false. With this one, it will toggle. I have to click twice and it will stay in and pop out. Right, so what I'm going to do, I've got some PLC variables behind the scenes just so we can use this. So as you can see here, let me just clear my errors. So you can see here I can now toggle this button, and behind the scenes in the PLC you can now see the PLC is reacting the same. Perfect, first part done. Next, a way we can say I'm going to give this text, I'm just going to go static text at the moment. You could use localization if you want to do different languages. I'll cover that at the end. So let's cover what we're actually planning to do in this video rather than digressing right at the start. So starting off with off in its first state. First way, let me do it the way I would do it myself first, because I think this is it's got the least amount of lag, it's the nicest looking, and then I'll show you the other ways afterwards because there are some handy little hints in the other ways. How I would do it, I would say I would use the on state pressed and on state released events. So on state pressed, it already knows we're part of this control, so the selected control, it's common text, just drag that out and it automatically makes it ready for me to write into it. And I'm going to say, this was the pressed, so I'm going to say that this is on. And next we can just go into the on state released. Take this one here, common text, drag it across, and we're going to take that as off. There we go. Right, let's just save this. Okay. So in its initial state there, obviously it was still in its last state while I was editing, so it didn't get that on state press change event. But because your controls are going to start off in the out position and you've preset the label in the out position, all the events will be correct. So there we go. So on when it's pressed, off when it's not. And just to show that we can actually trigger this to a prepared value behind the scenes, it pops out when it's off, and we'll pop it back on. Right, the benefit of this one is you've got practically no lag at all. Because you're using the actual buttons event to do it, it's instant. So you get instant change of that text. So good, there we go. That's the one I would use. Let me show you the other types too, just so we've got the full range. So let's go back into desktop view, and you'll see some of the problems that come with it. So I'll keep this exactly the same, but let's just go behind the scenes and take both of these out. The other thing we can do is do custom events. So if we want to watch for a value changing, and in this instance, I would want to check to see if that ball has changed, and then to influence the text, we can do that. So I'm going to create a data binding on custom, pick my ball. I'm going to make an event. So all that does is trigger this event every time that changes. So when it goes from false to true, true to false, this event will get fired. So then the next thing we have to do inside here is put a condition, tie it to the same PLC variable of my ball. We'll evaluate it to false. If it is false, we will go in common text, put that across, and the text for false will be off. And I'm just going to copy that across this time and put the text as on. Now, what you will see here is you can now see the slight lag that comes from it. It's marginal. I mean, for me, that kind of screams out. I see that instantly. But if you're used to working with other types of HMI screens and there is lag in certain operations, then that's fine. Entirely up to you, this type of thing. But I do see that very slight, because all the symbols at the moment are set by default to be updated every 500 milliseconds. 500 milliseconds we can just about see. Okay, so yeah, if you can see that lag, yeah, that's one of those things. That's why I take the other event where I say my on state pressed, on state released, and then it just keeps up with it. It's doing it up front, and it's just reacting to the PLC changing. The PLC changes the state then pops down, and then it automatically does its text. The last one that I'll show you is this one here, this push button. I haven't put anything, well, there is something in the start. And so the downside with this one is you can make it as reactive because you have to double click on this and say that I would like my symbol to be updated quicker. So we can actually say 200 milliseconds. But inside the text field, we can write a certain amount of JavaScript. And JavaScript allows us to do inline if statements. I think they're called ternary ifs or tertiary ifs, that sounds right, which says evaluate this first part. So I'm going to actually evaluate the symbol itself. The question mark says, right, this is the start of the if statement. If the first part evaluates as true, return this. And if it evaluates as false, return this. So there we go. So downside of this is because in live view, pre-live view, in design view, it's not running that JavaScript. You don't see any text. It's only once you get to the stage where you're live does that JavaScript kick in. Right, as promised, the second part, if we wanted to make this language compatible, all we have to do is go into localization. We'll just go into EN. I'm just going to make some new ones, just leave the ones that are already there. So I'm going to have my, let's call it label on, and this is going to be just on. Make a new one of label. Oops, off. This is off. We will cover the German side in here as well. I don't know the German for it, so I'm just going to put 1, 2, 3 just to show. And label. Had I saved that, it would have actually transferred these across. So you wouldn't have had to write that twice. There we go, label on, label off. Back into our desktop view. And for this one here, we can just go inside and just, as you start typing label, we've got label off now, which is usable. Go into our events, into here, and just copy and paste label off and on, label on, there we go. And now that will take project settings. At the moment, it's geared up to be in the UK. And if I put in a push button, just so we can see this push button here, this will be our language push button. Double click on it, just opens the on-press event. And I'm just going to call a function and change the locale, set the locale, and it knows that German exists. Which we can press, and you can see the locale's already changed. So that's language support in Twinkle HMI. There we go. On a video about how to do labels on push buttons, you also get languages. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. See you in the next video. Cheers.